Hello, I'm Lauren Hubele. I'm a gemmotherapy expert and health educator, and I am here today with my colleague, Maegan Lemp, and we're about to continue our conversation on polyvagal theory and how it might connect with our work in gemmotherapy to support the nervous system. We've been exploring extracts for a number of years that have specific actions on the central nervous system or the autonomic nervous system. We've been looking at ways to microdose them in an effort to harmonize those systems and improve emotional well-being and what I like to call emotional immunity. Recently, however, I came across Stephen Porges' work with polyvagal theory and became quite intrigued and invited my colleague Maegan to have a look too. And I think it might be important, Maegan, just as we get started on today's conversation, just to remind everyone what is polyvagal theory from your view?
Yeah, so polyvagal theory is looking at how we interpret cues of safety and danger, both inside of our body, between us and other people, and in our environment. So I've heard it referred to as the science of connection, and it's related to the vagus nerve, and it has to do with how we not whether we are actually safe or dangerous in reality, but how we perceive the environment. So something could be safe and we perceive it as dangerous, even if we don't understand why, or vice versa. And this has to do with how we relate both to ourselves and to other people that we're in relationship with. And there are three states of the polyvagal system, three states of the nervous system. And that's what Stephen Porges discovered, is that there's the sympathetic nervous system and actually two branches of the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, thanks, Maegan. I think that one of the surprising things for me to discover as I learn more about polyvagal theory is the idea that we can actually use our sympathetic nervous system for good, right? And this was a real insight that I actually use it all day long to get things done. But I use it in a very organized way. And that's all fine and well until exactly that word you said, I perceive I am in a dangerous situation, which perception is so powerful. It could be, for me, I know it could be a smell or sounds or um, another person that could easily alert my nervous system, sometimes even unwillingly or even subconsciously, that I'm in danger. And I think we've all had these experiences where our nervous system is doing something different than our mind might be telling us.
Yeah, I think a real classic example of this, I think, has different language to it. But I think when you hear people say that somebody's energy bothered them, or they could just feel something from that person, and there's not necessarily always a story that makes sense about it, but it's the way that two people's nervous system or somebody's nervous system and the environment, how we are responding, even without the story, just the sensation of how we're responding.
Hmm, right. So what we'd like to do for you all today is take you into our next layer of discovery. And that is looking at real life experiences and how we might look at it from a clinical perspective in order to be of help or support to the person having that experience. And perhaps even share a few tips in the line of Gemmo extract that maybe you will find helpful. And Maegan, we were going to talk about a story of something that you've recently experienced. Do you want to get us started with that?
Absolutely. So a few days ago, I went to the grocery store and I was standing in the produce section, which is when you enter the grocery store and you take your cart, immediately you enter the produce section.
Mm-hmm.
And my first awareness when I entered the produce section was that I could feel now the awareness that I had been putting off going to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed the cart and I started to feel my breath change.
Mm-hmm.
And the feeling in my head changed. And I was aware that I was having a response, that something was happening. And I quickly became pretty immobilized and feeling very shut down. My head started to feel quite swimmy. I felt a little dissociated and unorganized and very unclear about what I wanted to buy. I felt very uncomfortable, but in a pretty shut down, still way. And next thing I knew, I was just standing with the cart in the grocery store, in the produce section, just not moving, feeling some tightness in the chest, a very sort of flat, dissociated, confused feeling.
You know, Maegan, as I'm listening to you, I think many people might describe that as overwhelm. Would you have felt that that might be a word that you would use?
Sure. I think that would be, yeah, I think that it was a little different than how I might typically experience overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I have a sense of what I'm overwhelmed about.
Yes.
More like a I need to climb a mountain kind of feeling.
Right.
This was a more confused, swirly, dissociated kind of feeling.
Right, right. So those words that you used, I think, are really important for those that are listening as cues, because what we're looking for is opportunities for you to hook in, like, I've felt that way before, or I recognize that feeling, right? And so, Maegan, you said something that struck me. You said immobilized. What did that mean for you in that moment?
Well, what I noticed, typically we grab our cart at the grocery store and we walk around and we get what we need.
Sure.
And I noticed that when this feeling came on, that what I saw myself doing was just simply standing still with the cart. And my energy became shifted to, I just stopped moving. My head felt swimmy. I was focusing on breathing and I just stood still.
You also used the word disassociated, and often I hear that in my practice, and I'm curious to ask, like, did you feel that you were out of your physical body, that you had left your physical body and maybe were looking at, or what was the sensation like for you?
In this situation, I did not feel like I had left my physical body, but I did feel not able to, I didn't feel like I had control to reorganize and get myself moving, or even get organized enough to get clear about what I was supposed to be doing in that moment.
Okay.
It was really just a shutdown. No clarity. No, the wheels weren't turning.
Right. I think we can all feel this right along with you, Maegan, because I'm sure everyone has been in that position. And I want to cue you all in that are listening to where we could go with this clinically. at this point, a very good question to ask Maegan would be, what would be your wish if someone were to show up? How would they show up for you, Maegan? How could you envision what help would look like for you?
Yeah. It's interesting, Lauren, how the nervous system shifts, because even you're asking me that question feels like somebody showing up, and I could feel my
Oh,
breath soften and open. But, I think as I'm feeling all of the body and mind sensations as I'm recalling this situation, I think that support in that moment would have felt like somebody just coming and standing, like a friend feeling, somebody just coming and standing next to me and maybe just being with me in that moment,
mm, mm,
just showing up and being there. I'm not sure that I would have been ready at that particular moment for somebody to offer lots of suggestions or try and guide me through the grocery store. I think initially there was so much confusion and sort of lack of connection with myself in that moment that I really would have loved just somebody else to show up and be with me.
mm. You know, Maegan, I love the way that you can articulate this so clearly for everyone. And this being with is one way of resolving the situation, right? And what this being with can do is open a window to ventral vagal, right? And I always love this example. And my polyvagal theory teacher, Cameron Scott, often talked about you can see ventral vagal from where you are, right? And at the moment, in that swimming moment, you can't,
Right.
right? It's not even in your vision, but the possibility of someone showing up and being with you
Yes.
could make the difference. And um, I think this is also not only important on a clinical level, but as friends and family, that when we encounter someone in this state, like you were in, Maegan, and we're going to call it a shutdown state, and in polyvagal theory, it would be the dorsal vagal state. Um, Discovering what that person needs is important, and we have um, uh, through our work, Maegan, we've kind of looked at two different ways that person could show up that would be helpful. And one is, as you're talking about, being with, what do you need, honey, right?
Yes.
And the other is that very helpful friend
Mhm.
that shows up and like, oh, honey, you just need to get moving, right? Once you get moving, you're gonna be fine, right?
Yes, exactly.
How would that have felt to you, Maegan, had I shown up to you that way?
Well, I'm picturing this, and I think that it would have felt well intended, but I think it almost might have added to my confusion
Ah,
in that initial moment.
yeah, you weren't ready to move,
I
right?
wasn't ready yet.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
it is amazing how often, if what we need is somebody to just be with us and that happens, that the nervous system can shift quickly, and within a few minutes, that might not be the case anymore. But as I feel into this, the initial feeling was that would have added to the confusion.
Yeah, yes, yes. That's you've stated that so clearly. And I'm excited to share with folks some Gemmos that they can do. But you shared something very beautiful, because we can't always whip out our bottle of Gemmotherapy extract. It would be lovely if we always had one with us, but you didn't, and you did something else for yourself. Do you remember what that was?
Yes. So what I decided to do in the moment, and I think that as I explore with Lauren and through my own studies, polyvagal theory, um, it has opened up so much spaciousness and compassion, because I no longer had to figure out why or judge or create a story about why I was immobilized in that moment. I was. And so I became aware and watched this feeling and saw myself standing still with the cart and feeling very detached and disorganized and swimmy. And what I decided to do was just give myself permission to be that in that moment.
Right.
And I just gave myself some space.
Yeah.
And I stood there. And I think that permission felt like the being with energy, looking back on it. You know, this was sort of just happening as it unfolded, but it felt like I showed up for myself and allowed permission to just be there. And I did notice within a few minutes that I started pushing the cart.
Hmm.
I wasn't pushing it with a lot of organization or knowing where I was necessarily going at the beginning. But for a few minutes, I noticed that all of a sudden my feet were moving and I was pushing the cart around the store.
Yeah. Beautiful. Maegan, you mentioned this word organizer, and that's quite a hook for me, that you were quite organized. And I just want to um, tell everyone, we'll certainly be talking about what can be done at that point in our next recording. But
Yes.
coming right back to this, and you did such a beautiful job, and I really want to honor what you did for yourself, because I know how many times I was just thinking about how many times I've been in a similar circumstance where the voice that came through for me was, Lauren, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Right? And very far from the compassionate friend that I needed. And so that in itself is therapeutic, how we show up for ourselves. We know that you know, gentle breathing, a little gentle movement, nature, music, there's all kinds of things that might help us be with ourselves so we can mobilize. But let's talk for a few minutes about extracts. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, so you talked about the be with energy, and we have looked at extracts we know that are helpful for the central nervous system, that will help someone exactly in the state you were in, and all versions of shutdown. That will, what we're looking for is what helps them mobilize, right? To move out of that so they can see ventral from where they are. And so the be with energy, those extracts are harmonizers. They'll be harmonizers for the central nervous system. You mentioned too that you thought if I had those with me, I think I would have taken them. What were they, Megan?
I think that I would have taken, which extracts were they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in that moment, I would have taken either hazel or hawthorn,
Mm.
because I felt I wouldn't say I felt tight in the chest, but I felt some kind of shutdown, contraction, something happening here in the heart area,
Mm.
and in the head. And for me, hawthorn is when I feel something in the heart. Hawthorn softens and opens.
Yeah. Yeah. I would concur that those would could both be lovely examples. Another two that you might consider that I think fit very well with the be with energy would be olive or fig.
Yes.
And we're not going to go into the specifics of those extracts, but previously, Maegan and I recorded, along with our friend Terry, a number of podcasts called Show Memos, and we have each of those recorded for you to listen in and see what you can learn about those extracts for yourself. And
Yeah.
then, Maegan, there is, though, the time when someone is shut down that really what they need is someone to come along and say, hey, come on, let's get going. You know, you can do this. Let's go. Let's get moving. And that can be useful. And and I think we have to find out from our clients which they're feeling, and if we're treating ourselves, certainly tap in and ask yourself, what is it that you're needing? And that doesn't have to be a harsh voice. It can be very much the good friend, right?
I think that there's a beautiful image that I have in my mind for the differentiation of these two. And it's if I would have wanted somebody to just come stand next to me and be with, which is the energy we've already talked about, that harmonizing, showing up for energy. And I think that the other piece would have been, did I want somebody to come and take me by the hand and guide me?
I love that. Yes, that is a perfect lead in to extracts I know that have been very helpful for me in this circumstance, as well as many of my clients. And that would be silver birch seed, which is a fantastic guide. And it's a tonic for the central nervous system. I also very much appreciate sea buckthorn in this capacity to guide. It's very good at letting the light in, and as well as almond. I think all three of those can be the guide to movement when you're ready, right? When you're ready to move, and knowing that, knowing what it is that you need if you're taking care for yourself, or knowing what's best for your client, and helping them discover actually what they need, be helpful. What would you like to add to this conversation, Maegan?
I think it's important when we're showing up for ourselves and we're talking about the nervous system. The nervous system is felt, and it just is what we're noticing without story and without judgment. And so I think in order for us to honor that in ourselves and in our close friends or relatives that we're in connection with regularly, and in our larger community, I think that we need to be careful about not getting too much into story, because story brings with it sometimes judgment on whether it should or shouldn't be happening, or solutions. And we're actually not really looking for solutions as much as we are just trying to figure out where we are on the map in that moment, and determining where we are and how we're feeling it and what might feel helpful actually leads right to the solution without effort.
Yeah, it's that, what is the kindest next thing I can do for myself? Yeah, that's all we need. That's all we need, not more. Okay, well, I think this was a fantastic opportunity to share with everyone this next step in our exploration of polyvagal theory and gemmotherapy. And I'm looking forward to sharing further in our next episode a set of extracts that would help us in that mobilized state to organize. And when we do that, we're not only organized and productive, but we're also creating new pathways from what would have been our habitual response.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks, Maegan. Thanks for sharing so honestly and showing up today.
Thank you, Lauren. And it's great to connect with everybody who's watching. And I look forward to continuing this exploration.
Great.